Pokémon. Power Up Psyduck. Chapter 1. Oh, Psyduck. This looks like the perfect place to stop and camp for the night, said Misty. She looked around. She and her friends Ash and Brock had spent the day hiking through a forest. Now they had reached a grassy clearing in the woods. A stream and some fruit trees were nearby. I don't know, Misty, Ash replied. I was hoping we'd make it to the next town today. I want to battle with the town's Pokémon gym leader for a badge. Pika, Pika, Ash's Pikachu protested. I guess we could use a rest, Ash agreed. Misty smiled at the little yellow Pokémon. Pikachu always cheered her up. Plus, it was a great playmate for Misty's Togepi. The baby Pokémon had hatched not long ago. It was so young that the bottom half of its shell was still attached to it. Togepi loved to play with Pikachu. Misty and her friends began to set up camp. We're right in the middle of nowhere, Ash complained. Misty grinned. Don't worry, Ash. We won't be here long. Besides, we might even spot some rare Pokémon. Misty was used to Ash's grumbling. Ash was always looking for Pokémon to capture. He hated to waste time by being in the middle of nowhere. Misty knew Ash pretty well by now. She had joined him on his Pokémon journey when he was first starting out. They'd had lots of adventures so far. They'd made some new friends, like Brock and Tracy. Both boys were older and gave Ash and Misty a lot of great advice about training Pokémon. And they'd caught new Pokémon, too. Misty now had Staryu, Starmie, Goldeen, Horsea, Psyduck and Togepi. Ash hoped to capture all the different kinds of Pokémon in the world. He dreamed of becoming a Pokémon master. Misty specialized in water-type Pokémon. She loved the way they could float and swim and dive in the water. The way they waddled around on land was really cute, too. Togi! Togi! Togepi cried out to Misty. Its stomach gurgled. Oh, you're hungry, Misty said. She scanned the clearing. Some juicy, ripe apples hung on the top of a tall tree. But how could she get them? Then it came to her. Her Staryu could do it. Staryu was a star-shaped Pokémon with a red gem in its center. Maybe Staryu could slice the fruit off the trees with its sharp points. Misty reached into her backpack. She dug out a red and white Pokeball. Staryu, I choose you, Misty called. An orange, duck-like Pokémon emerged from the Pokeball instead of Staryu. Psyduck, it croaked as it waddled toward Misty. Oh, Psyduck, Misty groaned, not again. Ash snorted with laughter. Gee, Misty, you're a great Pokémon trainer. You've almost taught Psyduck its own name. Most of Misty's water-type Pokémon were smart and talented. But her Psyduck was always getting lost or confused. Misty knew Psyduck tried hard. But it could really get on her nerves sometimes. I don't know what I'm going to do with Psyduck, Misty complained. Sometimes I wonder why I keep it with me. You and Psyduck have been through a lot together, Brock reminded Misty. Yeah, Ash added. Psyduck's even helped us out of some serious trouble. I guess you're right, Misty said. I'll be right back. I'm going to look for some fruit that's easier to reach. Misty walked into the woods. Her friend's words rang in her mind. She and Psyduck had been through a lot together. Psyduck might be frustrating at times, but it was also loyal. In fact, Misty remembered she had never actually caught Psyduck. The confused orange Pokémon had caught her. It had all started when Misty, Ash, and Brock had found themselves in a strange new city. Chapter 2. Hypno and Drowsy. These buildings are so tall you can hardly see any sky, Misty said as she walked downtown with Ash, Brock, and Pikachu. She thought there was something a little creepy about the city they were passing through. Where are we, anyway? Ash asked. Brock reached into his bag for a map. Brock was a gym leader who had put his career on hold to learn more about the habits of Pokémon. He was older than Misty and Ash and sometimes wiser unless there were cute girls around. Looks like we're in Hop 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 Town, Brock said uncertainly. What kind of name is that? Misty wondered. A blue-haired police officer rode by on a scooter. Misty recognized her right away. Every town had an Officer Jenny. They were all cousins and they all looked exactly alike. This Officer Jenny had a poster in her hand. A child's face was on the poster. Jenny hung it on a wall, in a long row of posters. Each poster had a different child on it. What do you think those posters are for? Ash asked Misty. Let's find out, Misty said. They approached Officer Jenny. Who are these kids? Ash asked. All of these children are missing, she replied. They've been gone for 3 days. Their parents are so worried. That's terrible, Misty said. Don't worry, Jenny, Ash told the officer. Detective Ash Ketchum will solve this case. Detective? Misty said. Oh, brother. Ash had a little too much confidence sometimes. Where do you think should we start looking for clues? Ash asked. Let's ask the kids at the Pokémon Center if they know anything, Brock suggested. Almost every city had a Pokémon Center, a place you could take your Pokémon when it was sick, hurt, or just tired. Brilliant deduction, Brock. Ash said to his friend. Let's go. Misty hurried to join the two boys. Officer Jenny led them all to the Pokémon Center. Nurse Joy stood behind the front desk. They recognized the orange-haired Pokémon nurse right away. Nurse Joys were kind of like Officer Jenny's. Every town had one, they were all related, and they all looked alike. And, of course, Brock had a major crush on all of them. I'm Misty. My friends and I are here about the missing children, Misty told Joy. Oh, yes. All those boys and girls who disappeared. I saw it on the news, said Nurse Joy. She sighed sadly. I wish I could help you, but I've got my hands full with our own mystery. What do you mean? Misty asked. All the Pokémon here are behaving very strangely, Nurse Joy explained. She led them to an examination room. Some Pokémon were lying on a counter there. Just look at Cub1 and Oddish, she said. Cub1, a small Pokémon wearing a skull helmet, seemed to be in a deep sleep. Oddish, a Pokémon that looked like a weed, was sleeping, too. So were several other Pokémon lying near them. Even Magikarp is affected, said Nurse Joy. She lifted up a limp, fish-like Pokémon. It's usually full of life. Misty cringed. She hated to see a water-type Pokémon in such sad shape. Looks like it's ready for the deli counter, Ash added. Nurse Joy walked over to a Pokémon with orange feathers and big, goofy eyes. And this one's in just terrible shape, she said. Sigh, moaned the Pokémon. Misty stared at the duck-like creature. She had never seen a Pokémon like it before. She was not impressed. What is it? Ash asked. Misty noticed that even Ash didn't sound very excited about the Pokémon, and he was usually excited about any new Pokémon. Ash took out Dexter, his Pokédex. Dexter held information about every known Pokémon. Psyduck, Dexter said. A water-type Pokémon. Uses mysterious powers to perform many different attacks. Mysterious powers? Ash asked. I find that hard to believe, Misty said. She turned to Nurse Joy. So, how long has all of this been going on? She asked. For 3 days, the nurse answered. 3 days! Brock exclaimed in shock. That's exactly how long those kids have been missing. Officer Jenny had an idea. Maybe there's some kind of connection between the children's disappearance and the Pokémon's lack of energy. Ash looked thoughtful. One more mystery for the mind of Ash Ketchum, Master Detective, he said. Master Detective? Yeah, sure, Misty thought. Do you have any ideas yet? She asked. Not really, Ash confessed. But Officer Jenny had an idea. She held up a small device that looked sort of like a radio. This is a sleep wave detector, she said. Lately I've been picking up an unusually large amount of waves that make people fall asleep. I'm sure they're not coming from any of the Pokémon here, said Nurse Joy. Yes, Officer Jenny agreed. They're definitely from outside. Pika, Chuyuyu. Pikachu was sitting on a table. Suddenly, it drooped over onto the tabletop. Oh, no! Ash wailed. Even Pikachu's losing energy. Brock said. I wonder if those sleep waves and the Pokémon's condition. Yes, Officer Jenny interrupted. They may be connected. I think we'd better find the source of those sleep waves. Misty looked at Ash and Brock. Let's go, she shouted. Chapter 3. Under Hypno's Spell. The sleep wave detector led Misty and the others to a very weird place, a mansion on top of a skyscraper. The waves are coming from the mansion, Officer Jenny reported. Brock and Ash burst through the door. Misty and Jenny quickly followed them. They walked into a huge room with a high ceiling and plush red carpet. Men and women in fancy suits and dresses were standing around. They looked startled at the sight of Misty and her friends. A fussy-looking man came up to them. He wore funny little glasses on a chain. Are you new members? He asked them. Members of what? Misty wondered. We've been monitoring some sleep waves and they're coming from up here, explained Officer Jenny. Sleep waves, said the man. Oh, they must be coming from this hypno. He pointed to a big yellow Pokémon with a large, pointed nose. It was swinging a pendulum back and forth. A squat brown and yellow Pokémon sat next to it. It looked sort of like an anteater. Hypno? Ash asked Dexter. Hypno, a hypnosis Pokémon. Came Dexter's reply. It carries a device like a pendulum with which it hypnotizes its opponents. And what's that next to it? Misty asked. Drowsy. The first Pokémon. To use a combination attack like Hypnosis and Dream Eater, Dexter answered. I think Hypno's the evolved form of Drowsy, isn't it? Brock asked. The man with the glasses looked excited. That's correct. Our other Drowsy finally evolved into a Hypno 3 days ago, he told them proudly. Now it was Officer Jenny's turn to look excited. I knew it. That's just when those children vanished and the Pokémon started to lose all their energy. Misty and the boys nodded their heads in agreement. We've been using our Pokémon to help us fall asleep, said a man in a top hat. Who's we? Misty asked. The members of the Pokémon Lovers Club, said the man with the glasses. The Pokémon Lovers Club? Misty had never heard of it. The man explained. Everyone in the club adored Pokémon. Hypno was their favorite. The club members had something else in common, too. They all had trouble sleeping. So they used Hypno's sleep waves to help make them drowsy. So Hypno's sleep waves must have zapped the Pokémon's energy, Misty said. Brock agreed. Hypno usually uses its powers only on other Pokémon, he explained. It had to adjust its sleep waves to help humans sleep. I bet the new waves zapped all the Pokémon at the Pokémon Center. But what about the missing kids? Misty asked, confused. Just then Brock had another idea. Maybe the wavelengths can affect certain sensitive kids, too. Let's see, Misty said, planting herself in front of Hypno. Hypno, Hypno, chanted the Pokémon. It swung its pendulum back and forth. A strange feeling came over Misty. Seal, Seal, Misty said in a hoarse voice. She sounded just like the white water-type Pokémon. And she flapped her arms up and down like Seal, too. Misty, what's the matter? Ash asked. She's being controlled by the sleep wave. Brock explained. The gentleman from the Pokémon Lovers Club looked distressed. We've accidentally caused a terrible situation, he said. Seal, Seal. Misty ran past Ash and the others and right out of the room. They all hurried after her. Misty led the group into a large park. She flapped her arms and cried, Seal, Seal all the way there. Misty didn't stop until she had gone deep inside the park. A bunch of kids were playing next to a lake. But they weren't playing like ordinary kids. Every kid was acting just like a different type of Pokémon. These are all the missing children, announced Officer Jenny. Why are they acting like that? Ash asked Pokémonitis, Brock explained. Hypno's sleep waves have made the kids think they're Pokémon. Misty has it, too. What can we do? Ash wondered. The gentleman from the Pokémon Lovers Club had an idea. What if we use Drowsy to cure the children? It gives off dream waves that may counteract Hypno's waves. Brock nodded. That just might work. Chapter 4. The spell is broken. The group returned to the mansion. They sat Misty in front of Drowsy. They asked Drowsy to focus its dream waves on her. Waves pulsed forth from Drowsy's head. The waves floated toward Misty. Seal, Seal, she said. At first, Misty kept flapping and chanting. Suddenly, she stopped. Misty looked around. She felt sort of weird. Everyone in the room was staring at her. Gee, Misty, you look beat, Ash told her. What does that mean? Misty thought. Misty didn't feel beat. She just felt a little funny. But she was fine. When I want your opinion, I'll ask for it, she snapped at Ash. Ash began to laugh. She's back to normal, he said. Normal? What is Ash talking about? Misty thought to herself. She listened to Brock and Ash talk. They planned to take Drowsy to the park. They needed them to cure all the kids who thought they were Pokémon. Misty was starting to get it. Hypno's sleep waves must have affected her. You mean I thought I was a Pokémon? She asked. You acted just like a seal, Ash replied. Misty shook her head in disbelief. That is so weird, she said. I wish I could remember it. I know I'll never forget it. Ash teased. Come on, guys, Brock interrupted. We have to get to the park and help those kids. Misty and the boys grabbed Drowsy and headed back to the park. The Pokémon focused its dream waves on the missing kids. All of the kids woke up. They had no idea what they were doing in the park. And they all wanted to go home. Pika, Pika. Pikachu was back to its old self, too. Misty and her friends had just one stop left in Hop 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 Town. They raced to the Pokémon Center with Drowsy in tow. Drowsy's waves cured all of the sleepy Pokémon. Nurse Joy was very grateful. But she was still worried about that goofy Pokémon that looked like an orange duck. All of the other Pokémon are better, but this one's still holding its head. Sigh, moaned the Psyduck. Misty frowned at it. But Brock just had to butter up Nurse Joy. Leave it to me, he told her. Caring for Pokémon is the sole purpose of my life. Then maybe you can help it, Nurse Joy said. She handed Psyduck to Brock. Psyduck, it said. It jumped down and waddled after Brock. Suddenly, Brock didn't look so pleased with himself. Misty didn't feel too pleased with him either. Psyduck followed them as they walked out of town. Psyduck is a water-type Pokémon, said Brock. Misty, you take it. Misty was not at all interested. Why would I want such a boring Pokémon? It can't do anything. Dexter piped up. Psyduck constantly suffers from a headache, said the Pokédex. Give me a break. Misty shrieked. This thing always has a headache? She whirled around to look at Psyduck. Somehow she tripped and fell backwards. My Pokeball! Misty shouted. One of her Pokeballs fell off her belt and rolled towards Psyduck. Psyduck. The Psyduck peered at the Pokeball. It pecked at the ball with its beak. The ball opened up. A beam of light shot out and Psyduck disappeared inside the Pokeball. Oh, no, now it's in my Pokeball, Misty complained. Good work, Misty. You caught Psyduck, said Ash, laughing. Now I've got a headache, Misty groaned. Chapter 5. Psyduck's Mysterious Attacks. Misty wasn't crazy about her new Pokémon. Psyduck usually just got in the way. And then one day, Psyduck surprised Misty with some amazing attacks. It happened at the Fuchsia Gym, a huge, creepy mansion in the middle of a forest. The gym leader, Koga, was a ninja. He had lots of poison-type Pokémon. Ash battled Koga so he could earn a soul badge. They were in the heat of battle when the ceiling caved in. Team Rocket! Misty shouted. The Pokémon thieves, Jessie, James and Meowth came crashing to the ground. Prepare for trouble, said Jessie, a teenage girl with long red hair. She wore black boots and a white jumpsuit with a red letter R on the front. And make it double, added James. The teenage boy had purple hair and an outfit just like Jessie's. Jessie and James chanted Team Rocket's motto, to protect the world from devastation, to unite all peoples within our nation, to denounce the evils of truth and love, to extend our reach to the stars above. Jessie! James! Team Rocket blast off at the speed of light. Surrender now or prepare to fight. Meowth, that's right, chimed in Meowth, their Scratch Cat Pokémon. Meowth pounced in front of Koga. Step aside while we pick up all your pretty little poisonous Pokémon. Jesse and James tossed 2 Pokeballs into the air. Out came Arbok and Weezing. Misty gasped. Arbok was a poison-type Pokémon with some really nasty attacks. It looked like a cobra. Weezing, also a poison-type Pokémon, was a big, purple-gray ball of toxic liquids. Its attacks were just as nasty as Arbok's. Even Koga looked worried. We'll have to join forces to defeat them, he told Misty, Ash, and Brock. Right, shouted Ash excitedly. He threw a Pokeball. Go, Charmander! Ash's Charmander flew at Team Rocket. The orange-red fire-type Pokémon looked like a cute lizard. A fiery flame burned at the tip of its tail. Koga's Venonat and Venomoth joined Charmander. Venonat was a furry, bug-like poison-type Pokémon. It had long feelers and bulging red eyes. Venomoth was its evolved form. It looked like a big lavender moth. Step right up. James cackled. He made a fist and threw something at the 3 Pokémon. Misty's jaw dropped. Venonat, Venomoth, and Charmander were wrapped in strands of sticky goo. The goo made it impossible for the Pokémon to attack. Pikachu! Ash shouted. The electric-type Pokémon flew at Team Rocket. But Jessie quickly covered it with goo, too. Misty whipped out a Pokeball. We need you now, Starmie, she shouted. Oh, no! Instead of Starmie, Psyduck waddled out. As usual, it was holding its aching head. Psyduck! You're not Starmie. Misty was desperate for a useful Pokémon. This time I'll choose Stereo. She looked down. Instead of Stereo, Psyduck was still there. Now Misty was really furious. She turned to Psyduck and shook both fists at it. You're Psyduck, not Stereo, don't you understand? Obviously, Psyduck did not. Misty turned away from it. She crossed her arms and stuck out her bottom lip. Fine then, she told Psyduck. Go and stop Team Rocket if you want to. Psy-YY. Psyduck gave Misty a big hug. But that only made her more angry. Psyduck, you're driving me crazy. Misty was so mad her eyes were bugging out like Venonats. She clenched her teeth. What attacks can Psyduck do? She whined. Quickly, Ash handed Misty his Pokédex. Here, ask Dexter. Psyduck's attacks. Number 1, Tail Whip, Dexter informed Misty. This better work, Misty thought. Psyduck, Tail Whip attack now, she shouted. Psyduck. Psyduck. The Pokémon wagged its tail weakly. How can you call that lame tail wag an attack? Misty shrieked. She could not believe Psyduck was so completely clueless. It must have other attacks, Ash suggested. Psyduck's attacks. Number 2, Scratch, said Dexter. All right, Psyduck. Scratch attack now. Psyduck. Psy-YYY. Psyduck raced towards Arbok. It poked Arbok with its wing. The attack did nothing to Arbok. The purple Pokémon picked up Psyduck in its fangs. Psyduck looked at Arbok and flipped out. Psyduck, 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 it quacked. It jumped down and ran around in circles. Misty was humiliated. What a totally pathetic Pokémon, she wailed. I think I know a way out of this, said List Koga. He pulled a cord that dangled above his head. Whoosh! A panel in the ceiling slid open. Dozens of Voltorb crashed to the floor. Belay Misty had heard about Voltorb. The round, strange Pokémon looked like Pokeballs with eyes. But they were electric and could deliver a nasty zap. Electricity crackled in the air above them. Team Rocket stared at the gang of Voltorb. I don't know what they are, but they're in the way, Jessie said. She made a net with the mysterious goo. She held the net in her hand and cocked her arm. Then she flung the net at Koga's Voltorb. Dozens of Voltorb were trapped in the net. This is a nice little catch, Jessie cackled. Meowth picked up a loose Voltorb. I don't know what these things are, but I can use them to practice my bowling game. James stared at Meowth in utter shock. That's a Voltorb, he shrieked. The Voltorb on Meowth's palm rotated slowly. It opened its eyes wide. It began to glow. Suddenly, it exploded. The blast scattered Team Rocket's goo all around the room. Ash bent down and tried to clean off his Pokémon. But the goo seemed impossible to remove. Even Pikachu's Thundershock did not affect it. So that explains it, thought Misty. Most Voltorb would rather self-destruct than be captured. But the Voltorb in Jessie's goo net could not. The sticky stuff stopped them from blowing themselves up. Suddenly, Meowth took a Voltorb from the net. He bowled it like a bowling ball. It rolled toward Misty and her friends. Boom! The Voltorb exploded right in front of them. Smoke filled the room. Psyduck, Psyduck. When the smoke cleared, Misty saw Psyduck. It was racing back and forth in the middle of the room. Misty held out a Pokeball. Psyduck, return. Come on, Psyduck. You're going to get hurt out there. What's with this complete loser of a Pokémon? Meowth laughed. Psyduck was in a frenzy. It paid no attention to Misty. It ran back and forth again and again. Then it fell down at Team Rocket's feet. Let's snatch this Pokémon, too, said James, looking at Psyduck. We don't need Pokémon like that, replied Meowth nastily. Misty couldn't believe it. Even Team Rocket doesn't want Psyduck, she said sadly. Psyduck was back on its feet. It was racing around and holding its head again. It looks like its headache is getting worse, Brock noticed. Misty had had enough. Look. You come here right now. She grabbed Psyduck. Psyduck stood bolt upright. It stared at Team Rocket and their Pokémon. Misty Q could see waves from Psyduck's head traveling through the air. Psyduck was beaming them at Team Rocket. Suddenly, Team Rocket froze in its tracks. Well, what's happening? Jessie asked. I'm frozen. I can't move, screamed James, terrified. Hey, this must be one of Psyduck's attacks. Brock shouted. Dexter piped up. Psyduck's attacks. Llama number 3, disable. Then Psyduck's body began to glow with soft blue light. The light burst forward, then enveloped Team Rocket. Team Rocket and their Pokémon started swaying back and forth in a crazy way. It looked like they couldn't control themselves. Psyduck's attacks. Number 4, confusion, explained Dexter. Suddenly, Misty felt very proud. Psyduck's attacks are pretty good, she beamed. Brock and Ash had to agree. Team Rocket and their Pokémon whirled up towards the ceiling. Boom! They crashed through the roof of the mansion. Misty looked out through the hole. Team Rocket and their Pokémon got smaller and smaller as they flew away. They were blasting off again. Misty ran over to her wonderful Pokémon. Psyduck! You had that kind of power all along, she exclaimed. Dexter explained. When Psyduck's headache becomes especially severe, it has amazing power. Wow! That kind of talent is a real pain. Brock joked. Koga was very impressed. Magnificent, he boomed. Would you like to trade that Psyduck for my Venomoth? He asked Misty. Misty shook her head. I wouldn't trade my Psyduck for any Pokémon in the world. Misty! Ash sounded shocked. I couldn't wait to get rid of Psyduck. Misty shrugged. It's not so bad. You did a great job back there, she told Psyduck. I hope it doesn't go to your head. Chapter 6. The Breeding Center Secret. Misty was really proud of Psyduck's attacks. But she found out she couldn't always count on the confused Pokémon. Psyduck was impossible to control or predict. There had to be some way to train Psyduck, Misty knew. But how? Then an advert on TV gave her an idea. Pokémon love power. Find it at our 5-star Pokémon breeding center, said a girl with golden hair and a big smile. The advert was playing on a huge TV screen mounted on the side of a building. Misty could see it from the sunny park bench where she was sitting with Ash, Brock, and their friend, Todd Snap. Snap was a photographer. He had wavy brown hair and wore a striped t-shirt. Snap carried a camera wherever he went. He specialized in taking pictures of Pokémon. Ash looked at the screen. What's that? Looks like somebody just opened a new Pokémon breeding center, said Brock. It's the newest thing, Snap added. Breeding centers raise Pokémon for kids who can't train them themselves. It's like a Pokémon spa. A really excellent Pokémon breeding center can even help your Pokémon evolve. Misty said. Let's check it out. Ash was interested in all things related to Pokémon. The breeding center wasn't hard to spot. A neon Pokémon sign flashed above its door. Hundreds of Pokémon owners swarmed outside. Misty and her friends made their way through the crowd. The girl from the advert was inside the center. She and her assistant stood behind a counter, checking in Pokémon. The girl was still talking about Pokémon love power. Dozens of kids were lined up inside the breeding center. They all wanted to drop off their Pokémon. Misty pushed her way to the front of the WQ. I've got a Pokémon to leave, too, she shouted. Misty, you're leaving a Pokémon here? Ash looked slightly shocked. Yep, I'm going to try it. Misty plopped her Psyduck on the counter. Oh, it's so cute, gushed the girl. Don't you just adore its eyes? They're as bright and bouncy as 2 ping-pong balls. Yeah, and sometimes I wish I had a paddle, Misty muttered under her breath. Is there anything special you'd like us to do? Asked the girl. Misty rubbed Psyduck's head. There's a lot of unused space in here. And you have to change this clueless-looking face. That would take a miracle, Ash snorted. The girl beamed. Here at the Pokémon Breeding Center, our motto is, a little Pokémon love works miracles. The girl put Psyduck on a conveyor belt. Goodbye, Psyduck. Good luck. Misty waved as Psyduck rode off and disappeared behind a curtain. Psy. Psyduck sounded even more puzzled than usual. Misty and her friends left the breeding center and headed down the street. Psyduck will prove if that place is any good, Misty told Ash, Brock and Snap. Ash frowned. I bet you're just gonna leave Psyduck there and never go back. No way! Misty shouted. I'd never abandon Psyduck like that. Hey, that looks tasty. Snap had spotted a place to eat. A sign above the door read in restaurant hungry. Come to think of it, I'm really starving, Misty agreed. Ash spotted a sign hanging in the window of the restaurant. Look, it says all you can eat for free. There's gotta be a catch, Snap warned. Like you've got to order 10 dinners first. The restaurant's chef appeared in the door. He had a kind face with a big, bushy mustache. The buffet is free on one condition, he told the kids. You've got to show me my favorite Pokémon. Misty was excited. Free food sounded good right now, especially dessert. I'm sure one of us has your favorite. Misty, Ash and Brock showed off their Pokémon, while Snap used the opportunity to take some photos. Ash had Charmander, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, Pidgeotto and, of course, Pikachu. Misty brought out Goldeen, Staryu, Starmie, Horsea, and her baby Pokémon, Togepi. Brock was traveling with Onix, Geodude, Zubat, and Vulpix. The chef looked over the Pokémon. But none of them was his favorite. Misty felt so disappointed. Then the chef pulled out a picture. My favorite Pokémon is this one. Misty's jaw dropped. The chef was holding up a picture of Psyduck. I think Psyduck is the greatest thing since the invention of the microwave oven, said the chef. I'm such a big fan of that spunky orange Pokémon that whenever customers bring in a Psyduck, I let them eat for free. Misty knew exactly what to do. She had to get her Psyduck back. Sir, if we come back in a couple of minutes, will you be here? Sure. I've got to wait here for a delivery of 50 gallons of ice cream, said the chef. 50 gallons of ice cream. Misty jumped for joy. Yay, yay, yay. I'll be back in a flash. Misty griped all the way back to the breeding center. It figures Psyduck isn't around the one time I really need it. Ash had an annoying habit of sticking up for Psyduck. You're the one who left it at that place. Back at the breeding center, everything was quiet. A sign hung on the front door. Oh, no. It's already closed, Misty wailed. Brock took the news calmly. Guess we'll have to come back tomorrow, he shrugged. But Misty wanted ice cream now. I'm going to that restaurant today. There might not be any ice cream left tomorrow. Let's see if this place has a back entrance. At the back door, Misty banged and shouted. Hello! Hello! Is anybody there? Someone please come and open this door. Finally, Misty tried the doorknob. It was open. Misty and the others slipped through the door. They found themselves in a big, empty room. Hello? Is there anybody here who can get my Pokémon? No one replied. Misty tried another door. It led to a long, dark, creepy room. Is there anyone here? It's so dark I can't see. Brock pulled a torch from his bag. He snapped it on.